So Kenny Omega has officially signed with All Elite Wrestling. Uh, I gotta tell you, this was not a surprise. It wasn't a shock to anybody. It wasn't even a shock to me. Um, the moment when I saw the press conference that took place and saw everything that happened with the whole thing with the signing of some very talented superstars are going to be a part of it. I was very, very interested in the whole thing with the Lucha Brothers that are going to possibly be taking on the Young Bucks, which is going to be a very outstanding matchup. I can't wait for that. It's going to take place over at the Double or Nothing event. It's going to take place around May. But I wanted to talk about Kenny Omega. The idea that Kenny Omega signed with AEW is not a surprise. It's not a surprise at all. I mean, there's a lot of people that are probably excited and all happy and everything else like that just because he signed with the company and everything else like that. And, he's an executive vice president of the company. Now, I think there's a lot of fans that are, some that are happy that he signed with them. But there's also others that are pretty outraged by the fact that Kenny Omega didn't sign with the WWE. And when you think about it, this whole thing could have all been avoided had the first press conference featured Kenny Omega. But it was one of those things where the internet wrestling fans were going to get involved and they were all speculating about what Kenny Omega was going to do and everything else like that, when all along he was already with AEW. It was pretty much, cut, sealed, and dried. There's nothing you could do about it. And if you think about this, this was also pretty much a plan from Kenny Omega from the very start. If you go back to Wrestle Kingdom 13, Chris Jericho had his last match with, I believe, I forgot what his name. He had his last match at Wrestle Kingdom. Kenny Omega had not only did his matchup, but it was also going to be his last matchup, and he would be a free agent. And automatically, the rumors were already flying all over the place that Kenny Omega was going to sign with the WWE, which to me would have been would have been great, and it would also have been a shocking moment. It would have been a great shocking moment for Kenny Omega to, I made the comment where I said that Kenny Omega would be my surprise entrant for the Royal Rumble. He would go ahead and not only go into the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant, he would be the first surprise entrant to win the Royal Rumble and move on to WrestleMania to take on AJ Styles. But the moment when Daniel Bryan retained the WWE Championship, my last words were, okay, he's not coming. He's not coming at all. Kenny Omega is not coming. It ain't gonna happen. It's all out the window now. So once the Royal Rumble was over and once it was finished, then comes the press conference that happened just a couple of days ago. And then everyone was already, talking. We saw all the signees, and then when it came down to the very end of the press conference, obviously everyone was talking about Kenny Omega showing up. And while everyone was all cheering and all, yeah, Kenny Omega's here. Finally, he's in AEW. Finally, we get to see him in this company. Others like myself looked at it as, eh, he's here. Hmm. Well, it's over, boys. Kenny Omega is finally signed with AEW. Wow, what a shock. Ooh, I wasn't shocked, and it was just one of those things where even I admit that if the whole thing with Kenny Omega would have come out, if we would have come out to the WWE and did exactly what would have taken place, it would have been a shocking moment. A very shocking moment. And that's the thing. You can't shock anything with anybody anymore. The only way you're going to be able to get shocked is if you stick a fucking screwdriver into a fucking plug outlet, and then that'll be the only way you'll be shocked. But nonetheless, I mean, it wasn't a shocking moment. It wasn't. Uh, Kenny Omega entering the Royal Rumble, shocking moment. Kenny Omega winning the Royal Rumble, another shocking moment. Kenny Omega challenging AJ Styles for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania if things would have gone planned the way they go. That would be a shocking moment. Kenny Omega signed to AEW. Yeah, it's not shocking. It doesn't, I'm not grasp upon it. When I saw Kenny Omega in the press conference, it was good seeing him, obviously. It was. And then, and like I said, I and others were not shocked by his appearance. And I even remember saying this, and it actually happened. I knew right away this was going to happen. When I said, well, Kenny Omega is now signed with AEW, I suppose the next thing will happen is Chris Jericho will show up, and then, oh, wait a minute, it just happened. Chris Jericho appears at the press conference, goes to a face-to-face encounter with Kenny Omega. They start a fight. Everyone's getting into it. Once again, another moment that was not shocking. It shouldn't have shocked anybody at all. And everyone has to understand. I'm not trying to knock AEW. I'm not even trying to knock Kenny Omega or Chris Jericho. It's just that these days in professional wrestling, you just can't shock anybody anymore. You just can't. Everything, anytime when something's being released in the WWE or in some news conference or a news media on, social media on Twitter and Facebook and everything else like that, you would expect that certain particular superstar to appear in the WWE, to appear and shock everybody, or to appear in Ring of Honor, or to appear in Impact Wrestling, and it's a shocking moment. Nobody saw it coming. That's what I miss so much. These days, nothing shocks me, especially when it comes to something like this. So Kenny Omega signed with AEW, not a shock. His attack by Chris Jericho, the attack on Chris Jericho to Kenny Omega, not a shock. But I will say this. Obviously, we see a potential matchup that everyone, especially here in the United States, will finally get an opportunity to see. It's going to be Kenny Omega, obviously, against Chris Jericho, one-on-one. It's the Alpha versus the Omega, and it's going to be a tremendous match to watch. And once again, like I said, it's not a shocking moment, but a lot of people. I was looking through my Facebook, and I had saw several people that were outraged about the fact that Kenny Omega didn't sign with WWE, and there were some that were just. I kept reading these ridiculous comments where they were saying, "Well, I'm a WWE mark, and Kenny Omega made the biggest mistake of his life by going with AEW. AEW fucking sucks. AEW can kiss my fucking ass. AEW is nothing more than a t-shirt promotion." I've been hearing that, and I'm just like, okay, first of all, AEW is doing the right thing by putting out their merchandise, by putting out their t-shirts and trying to sell you something, okay? And here's the thing. While people decide to go ahead and be WWE marks, I've often said to myself, I can't be a mark for anything. I'm just a professional wrestling fan. I love the AEW promotion. I dig what's going on. But like I said before, I'm not shocked about anything that they do now, especially with Kenny Omega now being signed to AEW. But you have to understand something. It's going to be a matter of time. I mean, there's no TV deal being done just yet, and I don't think they should have a TV deal done yet. The TV deal should be done until after the All Elite 2 Double or Nothing event takes place, because so far you got a lot of good matches being signed to this one. And Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho is going to be, obviously, the main event. Is going to be a big, tremendous event, and everybody's going to be watching this. So here's the thing, to all of the WWE marks, if you're a mark for that company and that company only, obviously you're not a wrestling fan. And I say that with the utmost respect, because I find it so funny that we got all of these people that want to represent the WWE or represent Ring of Honor or represent Lucha Underground and everything else like that. Back in my time, I was a WWE fan from the start. And then I was thirsty for more wrestling. So that's when I saw NWA wrestling. And then, of course, it turned into WCW. Then I went a little bit further with ECW. Or actually, I apologize. I went further with World Class Championship Wrestling. I was into the USWA. I was into all of these other wrestling promotions. And I loved what I saw. I liked the wrestlers I was looking at. And some of them, I pointed out, could be good for WCW or it could be good for the WWE and everything else like that. Now, when you look at it, I mean, WWE is obviously still the hottest wrestling promotion going on today. And no matter how many mistakes or how many people want to be released from their contracts, the only thing that WWE will always do is always try to produce a new star every chance they get. The WWE will always do that. But am I a mark for WWE? Absolutely not, because I'm a pro wrestling fan. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm a pro. I love WWE. I'm not gonna say that. I love pro wrestling, and I'm not gonna say I love WWE or love Ring of Honor, because that's the brand I love the most. I'm a pro wrestling fan. I dig everything that goes on, and everyone else that's listening to this right now are pro wrestling fans to themselves. It's just that these days, like I said, we're not shocked anymore. It's hard to really get shocked or get excited over someone that's already been signed to the company anyway. And that's an example of Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega, I have nothing against the guy. I think he's a talented superstar. He's great. I wish he would have been in the WWE and would have been there for a year, maybe 2 years. Maybe, to conquer that match or conquer that brand before he goes ahead and proceeds to do what he has to do. And already they're starting to compare the whole AEW thing with WCW or AEW with TNA wrestling and all these other crazy comparisons. The only thing I could tell you is that AEW is going to be a great wrestling promotion. And it's being done by the boys. It's being done by the guys that understand the business and know what they want and are going to put out some tremendous talents. They're going to do everything in their power to sign new talent, and they're not going to go after any of the older talents unless they decide to say, hey, we want to get this guy in the WWE or get this guy in Lucha Underground or get this guy from Impact Wrestling and so forth. I am, like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Double or Nothing is going to take place on May. I'm really looking forward to seeing the AEW promotion is going to do. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing this whole thing with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. I can't wait. Um, should be tremendous. And as I said before, I'm not shocked that Kenny Omega signed. I'm not. If he was signed to WWE, that would be a shock, huge shock. It would send shockwaves all over the wrestling world. Kenny Omega signed with AEW. It's not a shock. It's exciting, but it's not that shocking. And like I said, wrestling these days doesn't shock me. Doesn't shock me at all.